Did you see me put a banana on the floor? Okay, there was a reason for that. It's a bit random because if I started this conversation, if I started this presentation talking about coaching, corporate finance, or something along those lines, you'd probably get bored quite quickly and walk off. But what I want to do is try and engage you in something that's very simple. So, who can tell me the best way of opening a banana? Do you know the best way of opening a banana? Right, okay, so that's exactly how most of us open a banana, right? Would you call that the top of the banana? Yeah, okay. So, what happens when you try to open it and it's not quite ripe? You know, when you try and snap it back, you know what happens? It kind of splits at the back, doesn't it? And you end up sticking your thumb in there and it gets a bit messy, right? Now, have you ever seen who or what species opens the most bananas or eats the most bananas? Yeah, monkeys, exactly. Monkeys, have you seen how a monkey eats a banana? How they open a banana? You know they do it? First of all, the top of the banana is that, not that, because it grows from the bottom, okay? And if you see a monkey open a banana, they do this. They squeeze it and they just put it that way, okay? And whether the banana's ripe or not, it always peels. It's a much easier way of doing it. But you know what? As human beings, we still snap it that way, don't we? And we get it wrong. But yet monkeys have been doing it for thousands of years the right way, yet we still don't do it the right way. And this is what I'm talking about, bad habits. You know, it takes a friend of mine's a psychologist, and it takes the evidence is there, it takes human beings 21 days to change habit. Okay, so the reason that we all still break the banana like that is because when we were children, we were taught to do it that way. And here we are, I'm in my 40s sadly now, and we're still doing it wrong. Because it takes 21 attempts at doing it that way to get it right. And then you won't stop doing it that way. Now, all of us, me included, all the people that have run businesses, that have jobs, whatever you do, have got bad habits, just in the same way in their business as I'm talking about here with this banana. And until somebody comes in and helps you overcome those bad habits, you're just going to keep doing it, and you're going to keep having the same results. You're going to keep doing the same way all the time. But if you can open your mind up to something a little bit more than, well, I've taught that way, that's the way I know how to do it, and you carry on, then you've got a great opportunity with your business. So I'm going to talk, sadly I'm going to have to refer to some notes because I've got some new stats, and my marketing manager very kindly recently gave me a completely new slideshow with lots of stats that are very interesting. So forgive me, but I'm going to grab some notes. So the front cover you'll see on the screen, it's a thought leadership piece. And as I've already mentioned, it's about habits. It's illustrating how SMEs change their habits in order to overcome barriers to their growth. The bulk of the information that you're about to see is taken from a white paper developed by the Department for Business Innovation and Skills, otherwise known as BIS. It's entitled SMEs, the Key Enablers of Business Success and the Economic Rationale for Government Intervention, dated December 13. As many of you all know, SMEs drive economic growth by stimulating innovation, acting as a competitive spur to existing businesses and making a disproportionately large contribution to job creation. There were an estimated 4.9 million private sector businesses in the UK at the start of 2013, of which 99.9% were SMEs. Despite a prolonged period of challenging economic times since 2008, the SME population in the UK has grown by around 14%. SMEs in the UK account for 59.3% of private sector employment and 48.1% of private sector turnover at the start of 2013. Let me just take this to the next slide. Hey. Of the 4.9 million SMEs, only about 30,000 companies are identified as having the ability to achieve high growth. The majority of SMEs would like to grow, but most do not. 68% of SMEs aim to grow in the next 2 to 3 years, but most do not show growth in any given year. In a recent segmentation of SME employers, results showed that 16% of companies were classed as growers, 68% were stable, and 16% as shrinkers. Growers are defined by SME employers that had increased the numbers employed by 5% or more in the last year with a minimum of 3 new employees, or SME employers that had increased turnover by 5% or more in the last year with a minimum increase of £50,000. Stable is defined as, fairly obviously, as employers that have had the same numbers or have employed up to 2 more or fewer employees than 12 months previously, and those whose turnover increased or decreased by less than £50,000. Shrinkers are defined as the opposite of growers, so effectively if they have shrunk by 5% or more and lost a minimum of 3 employees or more basically, or had a decrease in turnover of £50,000 or more. So, despite a recovering economy, why are there so few SMEs growing? So obstacles to business success. There are 3 main clusters of the SMEs need to address to achieve growth. The first cluster of obstacles is internal capacity and capability. For example, people management, skills and strategy. The internal capacity and capability of a business enables them to overcome difficulties and hence makes business growth possible. People management, for example, dealing with recruitment and delegation, 47% of SME employers did not provide any training for managers in 2011 or 12. As far as strategy goes, is moving from an opportunistic to more of a strategic approach in the business. 46% of all SMEs do not do any planning, either in terms of producing regular management accounts or having a formal written business plan. Although larger SMEs are more likely to plan, with 30% of SMEs with employers not planning at all. Innovation is interesting. For example, investing in innovation to drive long-term growth, because SMEs who invest in research and development have a 13% higher productivity than those who do not invest in research and development. Overcoming obstacles in the external environment, for example, new market entry, obtaining finance, etc. New market entry means, for example, developing new products and exporting. Interestingly, 55% of SME employers had not introduced new or improved products or services in 2011 or 12, and 81% of SME employers did not export their goods or services. Obtaining finance, in other words, switching from reliance on initial funders, family and friends, 75% of SME employers hadn't applied for or sought any finance in 11 or 12. There are a range of barriers that prevent businesses, particularly SMEs, from reaching their growth potential. SME employers have consistently cited the economy as the main obstacle to the success of their business since the start of the financial crisis, and the proportion of SME employers considering the economy as a barrier has been rising. The specific issues relating to the economy are reduction in demand, cited by 72% of SME employers who identified the economy as the main obstacle, followed by the pressure to reduce prices, that was 70%. Many of the things that concern businesses centre on government activity around regulation. But on the financial side, 12% of SME employers reported taxation as the main barrier to their success, and 10% considered cash flow an obstacle. Internal capacity and capability. Oh, sorry, I've done that one, haven't I? Overcoming obstacles in the... I've done that, beg your pardon. This is where it gets horribly wrong. The vision of the business owner is very important. A point for those people who think aspiration is one of those kind of airy-fairy things which has made no difference. It really does. SME employers with higher ambition are more likely to grow. Evidence suggests high growth outcomes are more linked to motivations and managerial capacities of the firm than the immediate environment. The majority of SME employers who use external strategic advice using things like Growth Accelerator believe it improves their business's performance. Okay. These are cliches you've probably heard. I'm too busy to work on my business because I'm too busy working in it. We've all felt that at times. And when you think about drilling down on that, if you can get somebody to come along and help you work on it rather than you sweating in it, the results are going to be better than where you are now. It's effectively change of thought. One of the things that we often come across is people that say, I know my business much better than anyone else. Who is going to come and tell me how to run my business? I've been doing it 20 years. Who's going to come in and tell me what to do? Well, let me just explain that the people that have been onboarded through Growth Accelerator, through Grant Thornton and the other consortium partners that run Growth Accelerator, I wish this was taller, they go through a stringent onboarding process. A lot of due diligence and referencing takes place. The coaches that we use come from every different sector there is in the UK, without any exception. And they are all highly experienced people, many of whom have had their own businesses, many of whom have sold their businesses and started new ones, do coaching, a bit like I do the growth management thing, as a side role. But believe you me, the reason this works so well is because the coaches do not get paid until they deliver what it is that we ask them to deliver. And that is business growth. At a macro granular level, whatever your pain points are within your business, I write a work package to ensure that the coach for your business delivers on exactly what you need so that at the end of it, your business will grow. Not can, but will. This is an interesting fact as well, going back on the one of the comments that we get, what's a coach going to teach me? I know my business. Well, there's a guy in the States from Kentucky called Marshall Goldsmith. He's a very well-known trainer in America, a very well-respected guy in coaching. And he said that about 80% of Fortune 500 and FTSE 100 companies today use executive coaching extensively to stay on top. And this was his company researching this back in the States. Growth Accelerator, it delivers. Unfortunately, I have a video with this, but the power of technology, I can't show you it because it's not going to work on my computer, unfortunately. But Rosa's Thai Cafe have grown when they came to us from 1.4 million in turnover to 2.8 million. They have gone from, I can't remember how many branches, I think they had one restaurant, they've now got about 10. Beg your pardon, 4 restaurants to a chain of 10. On the back of some apprehensions that the owners of Rosa's Thai Cafe had, they were convinced that going down the coaching route with Growth Accelerator was the right thing to do. And we're very pleased to be able to utilise them as one of our testimonials. But there are many, many, many of the 18,000 companies, in fact it's nearer 20,000 now that have been through it, of similar type success stories where when the coach only gets paid on the success of your business, they make it their business to ensure that you are successful. So here's some stats. I don't want to blind you with any more stats. You've probably heard enough percentages from me already, but Growth Accelerator operates in England. It's not in Scotland, in Wales. So I work for Grant Thornton, who are one of the country's leading advisory business advisory companies in the UK. But we are the lead consortium partner amongst another 3 companies, Winning Pitch, Oxford Innovation and Pera. We all have different geographical locations. Grant Thornton is London and Hertfordshire, and the other guys take up other areas. 94% of business leaders say they're likely to use Growth Accelerator, they're likely to grow as a result of Growth Accelerator. Through the access to finance route, there's business development coaching where we literally come in and help you grow the business through getting over your pain points. We also have access to finance where we prepare you so that we can take you to private equity, venture capital, high street banks, whoever it is, but you are in the fittest shape possible in order to be attractive enough for people to wish to invest, to get you investment ready. Now, the 103 million is actually, I believe, near 140 million now because we've increased quite a lot since this graphic was done. But so far, that's how many funds we have raised for companies that have come in to Growth Accelerator. We've paid out £13.2 million in leadership and management training through the grant funding that Growth Accelerator offers. Growth Accelerator offers 50% funding for training for senior management within the business, up to £2,000 per head. So if you've got to spend £40,000 a year of training your senior management staff, you can get £20,000 of that back. That's big money to anyone. The innovation side, 90% of clients that have gone through Growth Through Innovation, that's the third stream where if you've got to protect IP, you've got something that's unique that you want to develop in terms of trying to make it more attractive to a bigger audience. Oxford Innovation, one of our consortium partners, are experts in Growth Through Innovation. 90% of people that have been through that, again, would recommend the Growth Through Innovation, or GTI as we call it, offering. Here's some hard stats that are pretty useful. In the UK right now, the average growth of an SME in terms of gross value added, or GVA, is 7%. Companies that have been through Growth Accelerator, it's 32%. And these are figures not generated for the sake of marketing and to look pretty. This is stuff from the survey unit YouGov. We are effectively very closely audited by the government to make sure that we deliver on what we are supposed to within the contract that we have with central government. Adding to that, 5% employment growth in SMEs on average in the UK is 5%. Companies that go through Growth Accelerator, it's 36%. So in terms of employment, we're like 7 times higher. In GVA growth, 4.6 times higher. That backs up what I was just saying. And that's pretty much it from me. We're on stand H60, which is right at the end of the row here. So if you're interested and would like to know more, please come and see Raheem sitting here at the front, or myself, Simon, and we'd be very pleased to assist you. Thank you very much.